Okay, this is Unit 4, Chapter 3, Lesson 4. In this lesson, we'll look at understanding percentage problems, being able to identify rate, base, and percentage. And then lastly, we'll use proportions to help us solve some of these percentage problems as well. So let's take a look at understanding a percent sentence. There's really three elements to any percent sentence. You're going to have a rate, a base, and a percentage. So your rate is the percent in the problem. If you want 25%, 20%, I'm thinking of if I go to a store, something is 20% off, 60% off, that is the percent. Now the base is the whole amount, the number from which you are taking a percentage. So think of that as the whole price of the item, the regular price. So if it's regularly priced $150 and you get 60% off, well, the $150 is your base. Okay, you want to see what is 60% of that $100. Then the percentage is the part, or the number you get when you take that percentage of that base. So if 60%, let's go back to our analogy of 60% of 100. So if the item is $100 and I want to know what is 60% of that, and let's say it's $60, that means I'm getting $60 off of that 100. So $60 would be the percentage, or the part that you get off. So now let's look below. In these number sentences, or percent sentences, you're going to identify your rate, your base, and your percentage for each sentence. So looking at number 1, right away I see the percent. It has the percent sign by it, and that is your rate. So right here is your rate. I put an R by it. Now base is typically indicated with the word of. Okay, so whatever follows of, that is your base. So put a B there. So that's your denominator. That's the whole amount. And then the percentage itself is usually indicated with the word is. So is 14, meaning, let me put a P by that so you know that's your percentage. That means 14 is what you're getting off of $40, if you think back to our analogy of having the coupon and getting your discount. I want you to try 2, 3, and 4. Okay, use these key ideas to kind of help you, knowing that rate has your percent by it, base usually follows of, and percentage is. Okay, so now we're going to scroll down. And let's talk about finding the percentage, being able to find the percentage in a percent sentence. Okay, so we're going to convert percent to a decimal and then multiply the decimal to the base. Okay, so in this problem, and that's something to identify, we're looking for a percentage. So we're looking for our is, and they give us our of. They give us our of, we're looking for our is, and they give us the rate. So 25% of 65 is what? So what percentage is that? Well, first thing, you take your percent, change it to a decimal, so now it's 0.25. Then we take that 0.25 and multiply it. Of is indicating that multiplication. So 0.25 times 65. 16.25 is your percentage. Example number 2, 30% of 120. Change your percent to a decimal, so that's 0.30. And then take 0.30 times the base, 120, which is 36. For number 1, let's try this together. So we take our percent, change it to a decimal. I know 35% means 35 out of 100, which as a decimal means that my 5 needs to be in the hundredths place. So 0.35 times 78. Okay, so we'll do 0.35 times 78, which is 27.3. If this was money, $27.30 would be how you would write that. I want you to try number 2, 3, and 4. And then check in with your teacher. The application problem, try that as well. So Andre earns $380. He spends 70% of that money. How much does he spend? So just kind of use it the same way you solved this problem. It's the same way you do the application. Just think about the steps. Change your percent to a decimal, then multiply it to the base. Now let's go down to finding the base. So the steps to finding a base, you're going to rename the rate as a decimal, and then you're going to divide the percentage by the rate. So in the first example, we have 38% of what number is 19. So we set up our percent sentence. 38%, changing that to a decimal, is 0.38. Of, indicating our multiplying what number. We don't know the base. So remember above we multiplied it to the base. We don't know the base. So you can let any variable represent that base. We just put in for number. And then equal 19, because is 19. So remember up top we would put equal for is. Is was equal, was a value that our number or percent sentence equal to. So now from here you can see just by solving an equation, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. That's why we then divide by 0.38. And then that way we can solve for our n. And 19 divided by 0.38, our n value or our base is 50. You can always check your work. So remember, if we do our base times our percent, it should give us 19. So let's try that. 50 times our 0.38. Let's make sure that gives us 19. 50 times 0.38, 19. It checks. So this is correct. So remember, in order to check your answer, just do the opposite. So instead of the dividing, we multiplied our answer times the percent. Let's try example number 2. So we have to change 2.3% into a decimal. Okay, so remember, in order to change a decimal into a percent, so let's just see here, decimal to percent, we multiply by 100. So if we're doing percent to decimal, let me just do it this way so you can see we're going from here to here. The opposite would be to divide by 100. When you divide by 100, instead of moving your decimal 2 to the right, you move it 2 to the, so if we start here, that's your number. Instead of moving it 2 to the right, you would take that number and move your decimal 2 to the left. 1, 2. Okay, so 1, 2. So this is 0.023. That's how we got 0.023. Or you can simply do 2.3 divided by 100. You'll get the same answer. And now 2.3% of what number? So 0.023 times n equals or is 1.725. So we simply divide by 0.023. And our solution is 75. Remember to check 75 times your 0.023 should give you 1.725. Let's look down here. We have an example. So 85% of something is $5.95. So 0.85 times our missing value, I'm going to call it n, equals $5.95, or is $5.95. Divide by 0.85, and our n value. So if I do $5.95 divided by 0.85, I get 700. So 85% of 700 is $5.95. You need to do 2, 3, and 4 in the application problem using the same concept. So let's go down and talk about finding the rate. So far we talked about finding the base, finding the percent. Now let's find the rate. We simply divide the percentage by the base, multiply by 100 to convert to a decimal. So these problems would look like, what percent of 18 is 0.54? So what percent, so we don't know, so n percent of times 18 equal, because is 0.54. So in order to solve this, let's write it this way. You can even write it as 18n equals 0.54. This is the same thing as saying n percent times 18, 18 times n, and we know n stands for our percent. We simply need to divide both sides by 18. So now our n, if we do 0.54 divided by 18, is 0.03. 0.03. Now we have to convert that to a percent, and we do that by multiplying by 100. Recall, if you multiply by 100, you simply move your decimal 2 places to the right, and that's how we're getting 3%. Let's try number 1. What percent, so we don't know the percentage of 20, and I'm put a line by the is so you know that's your equal sign. What percent of 20, so 20n, n represents our percent, is 8.4. Divide 20, because the opposite of multiplication is division, and this is solving a one-step equation. And n, 8.4 divided by 20, is 0.42. Now we have to change this into a percent, multiply by 100, or just move it 2 decimal places to the right. So this is 42%. You try 2, 3, and 4, as well as your application problem using the same method. Okay, let's scroll down to proportions. Using these proportions to solve a percent. So a lot of you may be familiar with this, but we simply do percentage over the base equal rate over 100. You may have heard it in the past as is over of equal percent over 100. Recall at the top I told you is your percentage, of was your base, percent, the percent symbol is your rate out of 100. So if you remember this can really be helpful in assisting you solving these problems. You can solve for you will be able to solve for the percentage, the rate, or the base easily. So the first thing is to identify the parts of your percentage problem, which we did above. So notice 80 is our rate, our base is 55, we're missing the percentage, all right, or our is. Okay, so from there we're going to solve the proportion for the solution. If needed, we'll convert to a percent. So here we have our rate. Okay, so we have the rate, or what's out of 100, so 80 out of 100, of 55, that's the denominator. Is we're missing our is. Okay, so now we simply cross multiply, so we'll get 100 n, 55 times 80. So look, 100 times n is 100 n, 55 times 80 is 4,400. Then we divide by 100 to get n by itself, and the answer is 44. So the is, or the percentage, is 44. Look at example 2. We're missing our percentage, so we have an n over 100 because we don't know the percent. Our of is our denominator, 30, and our is our numerator, 6. We cross multiply, we get 30n, and 6 times 100 is 600. We divide by 30, and n equals 20%. So it's automatically in a percent, so you really don't need to convert when you're using your proportion. So you have 4 problems here to try. I'll do the first one and you'll finish. So we have 6%. Remember, that's your rate. 15 is our base. and our is, which is our percent